There was a word once spoken, a word not born from man, but from the breath of the eternal. It came through the mouth of a prophet. In the days when the people of God had returned from exile, their lives broken, their city in ruins, their temple but a memory. The prophet's name was Haggai, and his words still echo through the corridors of time. For though his voice was heard in ancient Jerusalem, his message was not confined to dust and stone. It was meant for a time to come, a people to rise, and a temple yet to be revealed. He spoke of the house of God, of the temple in ruins, of the desolation left behind when the people turned their hearts from the Holy One. He asked why they dwelt in paneled homes while the house of the Lord lay in waste. And then came the thunder, the divine utterance. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former. A paradox, how could a ruined, rebuilt, diminished house surpass the glory of Solomon's temple? Crafted with gold and cedar, shimmering with splendor, filled with the cloud of his presence. And yet, the voice of the prophet was not lying. No, it was speaking of something deeper, something that would transcend the physical. For the former glory was made of stones and fire, but the latter would be filled with the glory of the Spirit. The temple he spoke of was more than architecture. It was a mystery, a prophetic vision, a shadow of what was to come. It was you. It was me. It was the body of Messiah. The temple would no longer be built by human hands, but by the hands of the Eternal. No longer would it be limited to the mount in Jerusalem, but scattered across the earth, not in one city, but in every nation. The latter house would be made of living stones, hearts that beat with the Spirit of God. The Holy of Holies would no longer be behind a veil, but within the inner sanctuary of every believer. And still, we miss it. Still, we look for the glory in the past. We look backward toward former revivals, former breakthroughs, former blessings. We compare our now to what was, and we grieve. But God is not calling you back to the past. He is calling you forward, forward into glory, forward into fire, forward into purpose. The same God who declared the end from the beginning is the one who says to you, now the latter shall be greater than the former. You see, your past may be filled with broken stones. Your temple may have crumbled. Your soul may carry the dust of exile. But the word still stands, the glory of the latter shall be greater. Not because you have built it with human effort, but because the Spirit of the living God is building it in you. Your wounds, your failures, your regrets, He will use them as the foundation for something more glorious than you've ever known. The shaking will come, and has already begun. Haggai spoke it too. Once more I will shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land. And in the shaking, what is false will fall. What is temporary will be removed. But what is eternal will remain. He is shaking your life not to destroy you, but to cleanse you, to prepare you for the greater glory. For the gold comes forth only after the fire, and the temple is filled only after it is emptied. Do not despise your ruins. Do not curse your past. Do not mourn the temple that was, for the God who restores is moving. He is rebuilding. He is filling. And you, child of God, are the latter house. You are the vessel. You are the temple, and His glory shall dwell in you. Not the fading glory of yesterday, but the greater glory of the end. The trumpet is sounding, the wind is stirring, and the voice of the prophet cries out again, be strong, O Zerubbabel, be strong, O Joshua, be strong, all you people, for I am with you, says the Lord. My Spirit remains among you. Fear not. The glory is not behind you, it is ahead of you. The fire is not over, it is rising, and the temple of the Lord is about to be filled, not with gold, not with incense, not with shadows, but with power, with holiness, with the presence of the Messiah. Lift your eyes, O remnant, the latter rain is coming. The shaking will pass, but the glory will remain. And in that day, the world will know that the word spoken by Haggai was true, that the promise given was not for the past, but for the appointed time. And the appointed time is now. Would you like me to expand this speech into a longer format, such as 5 or 6 keynotes of 650 words each, or a full-length 100,000-word prophetic speech in this style? The shaking of nations is not a sign of destruction, but preparation. For the house of the Lord must be rebuilt, not on the sand of man's strength, but on the foundation of the Spirit. The ruins must be cleared, the idols cast down, for the glory that is coming cannot be housed in what once was. The prophecy of Haggai is alive again, declaring that what was lost shall be restored, and what was lesser shall give way to something greater. The shaking is not to break you, but to awaken you. And yet, the people tremble when the earth moves beneath them, not realizing that the very trembling is divine mercy. a call to return, a cry from heaven for the hearts of men to be restored to the purpose for which they were created. Haggai did not speak in a time of calm. He spoke in the midst of desolation, in the aftermath of exile. The people had returned, yes, but they had returned without the fire. They lived among ruins, and the foundation of the temple lay in neglect. They were building their own homes while the house of the Lord remained broken. So the word of the Lord came not to comfort, but to convict. It came to stir, to provoke, to call the people to rise and to rebuild. The call then is the call now. In the midst of our own shaking, in a world collapsing under the weight of its own idols, the Spirit of the Lord again cries out, "Rebuild my house." Not the house of human ambition, not the house of false comfort, but the house of my glory. For when the shaking comes, it reveals what is built on sand and what is built on rock. What can be shaken will be removed, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. The Lord is shaking the earth, not to destroy it, but to purify it. He is shaking your life, your plans, your security, not to harm you, but to strip away the dust that has covered the true treasure. The people in Haggai's day had become satisfied with survival. But God was not calling them to survive. He was calling them to restore. You too were not created to merely get by, to rebuild your life in your own strength. You were made to host the glory of God, to be a vessel of fire in a generation of ash. And so He shakes, He removes, He sifts, and in the midst of it, He speaks. "Consider your ways," the prophet cried. "Go up to the mountain, bring wood, and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it." The shaking is the beginning of the building. It is the tearing down of idols and the rising up of altars. It is not the judgment of wrath, but the discipline of love. For only what is refined can receive the weight of glory, and the weight of glory is coming. The house must be readied, the foundation must be sure, the stones must be clean. What was will not be again. The past is not your portion. Your portion is in the latter glory. That glory does not rest on what man constructs, but what the Spirit consecrates. It is not in gold, not in rituals, but in yielded hearts and broken vessels made whole. The glory is coming. The shaking is the sound of its approach. So let the foundations be laid again in righteousness. Let the ruins be cleared. Let the cry of Haggai rise once more, "Return to me, and I will return to you." Prepare the house, for the King is coming to dwell in it. And this time the glory will not fade. The former house was glorious in stone, but the latter house shall be glorious in fire. God is not calling you back to Solomon's temple. He is calling you to become the temple. The glory is no longer in the gold or the veil, but in the indwelling of His presence. You were not born for nostalgia, but for destiny. Do not seek yesterday's anointing, seek the new outpouring. The latter glory shall not echo the past. It shall exceed it. The temptation is always to look backward, to long for what once was, to mourn the days when the temple stood in majesty, when the cloud of God's presence descended upon the priests, when the people trembled at His voice and bowed under the weight of His glory. But the God of glory is not bound to the past. He does not retreat. He advances. His glory moves forward. Solomon's temple was majestic. It was the culmination of Israel's golden age, a place built with the finest materials, designed with divine precision, where the Ark of the Covenant rested, and the glory filled the sanctuary so thickly that the priests could not stand to minister. But even that glory faded. Even that temple fell. Even that splendor was not eternal. And so the prophet Haggai speaks, not just of rebuilding, but of surpassing, not of recovering the old, but of ushering in something greater. He declares that the glory of the latter house shall be greater than the former. It is a bold declaration, one that seems impossible. How can anything exceed what Solomon built? How can the ruins of a nation hold more glory than its pinnacle? Because the glory that is coming is not of this world. It is not measured in gold or weight or dimension. It is the glory of Emmanuel, God with us. It is the glory of the Messiah who would walk among His people, not in a temple of stone, but as the temple Himself. And now, that same glory dwells not in buildings, but in believers. The veil was torn not so we could enter a building, but so He could enter us. You are now the temple. You are now the sanctuary. You are now the place where His glory rests. And yet many are still looking for glory in the things that are fading. They seek it in the structures of religion, in the traditions of men, in the memory of yesterday's move. But the Spirit is calling His people higher, deeper, closer. He is saying, "Do not live in the memory of what I did. Prepare for what I am doing." The latter house is not a location. It is a people set apart. It is a remnant purified by fire, not by comfort. It is those who hunger not for another program, but for His presence. Those who will not settle for the outer court, but will press in until the holy place burns within them. The fire that is coming is not one of judgment for those who seek Him, but of purification. It will consume what is flesh, what is false, what is fading. And in its place will rise the true temple, the body of Christ purified, unified, and filled. You were not called to admire the former glory. You were called to carry the latter. This is not a time to weep over what was lost, but to consecrate yourself for what is about to be revealed. The fire will fall, and the temple will burn, not with destruction, but with divine purpose. So lift your eyes. Do not look back to the days of Solomon. Look forward to the glory that no eye has seen and no ear has heard. Let your heart become the altar. Let your life become the house. And the glory of the latter house shall be greater than the former, not because of what it looks like on the outside, but because of who dwells within. The ruins in your life are not your end, they are your beginning. The enemy seeks to make your brokenness your identity, but God speaks restoration. What lies in rubble today shall rise with glory tomorrow. The prophetic voice of Haggai declares that your delay is not your denial. He who began the work will finish it, and the glory of the latter house, your restored purpose, your redeemed calling, will testify of God's faithfulness in the fire. We are often tempted to judge our future by the devastation of our present, to assume that because something has fallen, it will never rise again. But the God of the ruins is the God of resurrection. He does not discard what has been broken. He rebuilds it with greater strength and infuses it with even greater glory. Haggai stood in the midst of a people who had returned from exile with hope, only to find the land still barren, the temple still ruined, and their hearts heavy with discouragement. They had begun the work of rebuilding but grew weary when opposition rose and resources dwindled. They wondered if it was even worth continuing, if the second temple could ever match the majesty of the first. Many had seen Solomon's temple with their own eyes. How could anything ever compare? Their hands grew slack and their vision dimmed. But God sent His prophet, not to shame them, but to remind them the glory that is coming is not dependent on the materials they could gather, but on the presence He would send. That word still echoes for us today. We look at the ruins of dreams that didn't come to pass, ministries that collapsed, relationships that fractured, prayers that seemed unanswered. We hear the voice of the accuser telling us it's over, that we've missed it, that the foundation is too cracked to build upon. But the voice of the Lord rises higher, saying, I am not finished. I will restore. I will rebuild. I will fill the house with my glory. It is in the ruins that He lays the truest foundations, because it is there that pride dies and dependence is born. What was broken in your life is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a greater one. The stones that have fallen will be lifted. The fire that consumed what you once held dear is not the final word. The ashes will give birth to beauty. The second temple may not have had the gold of Solomon, but it had something Solomon never saw. It was visited by the Son of God. It was the place where the feet of the Messiah walked, where the words of life were spoken, where healing and teaching and power were released. The second temple held the greater glory, and so it is with you. The seasons you thought were lost, the years you counted as waste, the pain you could not explain, these are the very places God is choosing to inhabit with His presence. He does not choose perfect buildings. He chooses surrendered ones. He is not looking for unbroken vessels, but willing ones. You are His latter house. You are His dwelling place. And what He is preparing to pour out in you will be greater than what you lost. Do not let the ruins define you. Let them remind you that God is a builder of the broken, a restorer of the fallen, and a redeemer of time. What lies ahead is not a shadow of what used to be, but the dawn of what has never been seen. The glory of the latter house, your latter days, your restored calling, your renewed fire will be greater than the former. And all the world will see that your ruins were never the end. They were the preparation for glory. He is calling the remnant, not the crowd. Not the ones who seek comfort, but the ones who seek Him. The latter house is not for those who only remember, but for those who are willing to rise and rebuild. The greater glory will not come to the passive, but to the prepared. And the glory that is coming will not resemble the past, it will overshadow it. The glory of the Lord is about to fill the new temple, and that temple is you. When God speaks of rebuilding, He is not gathering masses to admire architecture. He is summoning a remnant to carry the fire. The crowd waits to be entertained, but the remnant surrenders to be refined. The crowd remembers what was, but the remnant presses into what will be. The message of Haggai came not to a nation in power, but to a remnant returned from exile. They were few, worn, and surrounded by ruins. And yet, they were the ones chosen, not because they were strong, but because they were willing. Not because they were many, but because they were faithful. God has always moved through the remnant, the few who would dare to believe, dare to build, dare to carry the vision of a greater glory. Gideon did not need 32,000 men. He needed 300. Elijah did not find strength in the applause of a crowd, but in the whisper of God. The remnant walks by firelight, not floodlight. It follows the voice of the Spirit, not the trends of the moment. The greater glory is reserved for those who are willing to prepare. The latter house is not made with the hands of the indifferent, but by the hands of those who labor in secret, who weep between the porch and the altar, who say, "Here I am, Lord, send me." The Spirit of the Lord does not fall on those who wait for the show. It descends upon those who wait in stillness, in prayer, in hunger. God is not pouring His glory on those who chase comfort. He is pouring it upon those who chase Him. To rise and rebuild means you must lay down what no longer belongs. You cannot carry the stones of the former temple into the foundations of the latter. You must release what God is removing. You must leave behind the weights, the fears, the compromises. The call is not to patch up the old, but to construct the new. And the blueprint is not made by man. It is given from heaven. The Spirit will lead, but you must follow. The glory will come, but the altar must first be rebuilt. You may feel small. You may feel like your prayers go unheard. You may feel like your efforts are unseen. But heaven sees differently. God does not anoint popularity. He anoints obedience. And those who prepare in the hidden place will be used in the hour of visitation. Do not look around for affirmation. Look upward for instruction. For when the glory falls, it will not ask for permission from the world. It will rest upon the consecrated. The time is short and the shaking has begun. But in the shaking, the true remnant will rise. The latter house is not coming. It is already being formed. And if you are willing to be shaped by His hand, burned by His fire, and filled by His Spirit, then the glory will rest upon you. You will be His temple. Not just a vessel of memories, but a bearer of His presence. And the world will look not to buildings, but to burning hearts. The crowd may watch, but the remnant will carry. The former glory will be remembered, but the latter will be revealed, and it will be greater.